Hello, welcome to your astrology transits, your astrological weather, and we have a very interesting week coming in here. Um, gosh, well, how do I say it? I mean, it's always an interesting week in different ways. There's a few big movements, but one of the big things we're building up is we're building up to the square between Pluto and Mars, or I should say Mars and Pluto. We also have planets, all the changing signs. We have a lot of different flavor of things, and we're coming into Gemini season. So I wanted to do a little bit of a deeper dive on some of this because we're entering a new era. So I subscribe to David Palmer's Astrology AI called Hypergate, and I put it to the test. I've been working with it for about a year, and I really like it. But have astrology skills. You have to be an astrologer to be able to know the right questions to ask, prompt it, enter in the right information, and be able to double check what it says and how it says things. So I guess it's like anything else, you kind of work with things. But I did a little bit of deep dive on things, and I like the analysis that it gives, the deep coordination and the way it can pull a lot of things together. I just prompt it. So I will share my conversation today with some of the things that's going on. I'll give you a little overview of the week ahead and then we'll go into some of that. So the big things we have this week is kind of like a turning of the wheel moment. We've got the sun finishing up in Taurus and entering into Gemini. Okay, this is sun now. Ooh, big sun now coming into Gemini. But then the sun, once it hits Gemini, we have a lot of things going on. But try to keep it simple and then build on that. Mars is just moved into Taurus. It's been in Aries, its own, its home sign, and now it's just changed into Taurus, and it's moving toward, it's heading toward the square with Pluto in Aquarius. Those are fixed signs. So if you have anything and fixed signs, it should, ring a bell with you, especially the early degrees. All right. Venus freshly into Cancer. You see, Venus just went into Cancer there at 0 degrees, 58 minutes. Plus the general backdrop of Uranus in early Gemini. Okay, we just had that, we got that early, and then Jupiter in late Cancer. So it's amplifying the feeling of new cycles and a new storyline. So using the May 26th as a marker, that's when Mars will be at 5 or 6 degrees Taurus and squaring Pluto at 5 degrees Aquarius. So it'd be exact right around then. But we're going to feel that build up all week. So we have the sun will be in early Gemini. As we saw, have the sun will be changing signs this week, trining Pluto at the same time. So right when we get that square, we're going to have the sun trining over to Pluto. You can see that, once the sun changes over there in another couple days, changes into the next sign, you can see that it's heading on over to what's the word I'm looking for? It's heading toward Uranus in Gemini. So we're going to get that Gemini, and then Mercury has already gone into Gemini. That just happened. So we should be feeling a lot of sped up information. And they just made their first conjunction here in Gemini. Last year when Uranus dipped its toe in, it didn't do that. So this is the first time that these have made their conjunction in Gemini in 84 years. It's always a strange thing, I think, when, I mean, we've only recently fairly discovered it, but when we look back in history, when Uranus was in Gemini, we've kind of had a lot of violence. It's very interesting, but we'll get there. We'll get there. Okay. So we're going to use May 26th as we're building up toward our square. So that's the high tide point of this pattern, but we'll feel it build up all week. So Mercury in Gemini, we have new ideas, okay, new things. It's in its home sign, so we get that. Also, it's like the squirrel's been let out of the cage at the same time. Mars in Taurus, we just started that, and then it's like where we try new activities, especially ones leading to money, security. Venus in Cancer, we pull the people and things we love toward us. All right. And as the sun goes into Gemini, we can see how all these new ideas and activities can be incorporated into our lives, of course. And it begins to create change. So this week, Notice new thoughts and ideas. Enjoy new activities. Um, Pulling loved ones in for a hug. It's going to be a great week on that level. So this week, again, Mercury under Gemini. Gemini, it will be there until the 1st of June. Mercury in Gemini also conjuncted Uranus in Gemini. Okay, we're just passing that. So that's like, it's like there's so many things that you want to try. There's people that you want to talk to. There's new things that you want to do. You want to get ready and dive in. It's like you're an inventor in your own laboratory. We got to clear away things out of the way so you can get to do all of this. That's so. Let's see. Yeah, yesterday Mars entered Taurus. It'll be there until June 28th. And then just a little while ago, Venus entered Cancer, and then Venus will be there until June 13th. So Mars is a money sign. So Mars going into Taurus, Mars enters a money sign. I think I said that wrong. Mars enters a money sign, which is Taurus. And Venus brings the energy of home and family, being in Cancer. So this could be an expensive combination if you're browsing through the big box home goods store, or if you're gonna go, put out money for the home. So just keep that in mind. If you're willing to spend it, fine. If, just don't get caught off guard with that. You might be thinking frugal thoughts like making pasta from scratch while you place that state-of-the-art pasta machine in your shopping cart. Um, Also, there's like a very productive combination of energies to experiment and have fun with. So today, Mercury in Gemini squares the North Node in Pisces and South Node in Virgo. Right there, it's like it was just flipped into there earlier, so it's moving fast. So it was like 4 degrees. Now it's 5. Well, it's basically you want to try something new, but you actually have a choice. You could try something new or fall back into some familiar pattern, but realize that once you pick one of those, you've made your commitment. Okay, you have decided. Tomorrow, Sun enters Gemini. The sun shines brightly on communication and fun activities. Your feet are bouncing to the melody in your head. It is nice. On the 21st, Venus in Cancer squares Neptune and Aries. A little bit of interesting visualization is an important step for manifesting. So it's going to kind of put that little square edge on it. So you can't stop your imagination. So focus on what you want. It's kind of like directing that, that daydream about something you want to. Send that message to the universe, in the form of something beautiful, a beautiful image, what you want to manifest, and then let it go. This is the important time to do that on Thursday. Friday, the sun will conjunct. Let's see. You see, we had that. Okay, Sun conjunct Uranus in Gemini. Also, Mercury in Gemini will sextile Saturn in Aries. And then Venus in Cancer, trine North Node in Pisces. A lot of stuff in one day. Very busy. Could be your schedule. Obligations get stretched from morning till night. Things will just slip right in there. You may have to work hard. Things. Work, school, chores, social event lists of just keep getting longer. Don't forget to breathe and keep yourself hydrated, right? Then we come into over the weekend, we're coming into that square, but on Saturday, we've got Venus in Cancer in conjunct Pluto in Aquarius. So this is kind of odd. This might be like a day that you may fall in love, but the other person doesn't notice you. Their attention is somewhere else. I saw a cute cartoon. It's kind of like a guy's like goo-goo-eyed looking at a girl, and then she's looking at this little kitten going, "Oh, I love this kitten." And the cat's looking at this bowl of fish. It just can't wait to get into the bowl of tuna. So that's kind of like that energy. Each one is, into interested in something else. So that's going to be over the weekend. So just keep careful of that. Sunday, Sun sextile Neptune, we've got that will kind of be a little bit more like that Venus and Neptune or Aries energy. The Sun in Gemini, sextiling Neptune in Aries. It's going to give your ego, some oomph, maybe some like I envisioned this on myself. I thought this would look good. I want to do this haircut. I want to make this change that I imagined upon myself. Something like that would be kind of how that energy is. And then not a lot will be on Memorial Day on Monday. It's kind of a quiet day on some levels. It's it's like I feel the calm before the storm. It's like right before Mars squares Pluto. But it's going to do that on Tuesday. And then the sun will trine Pluto at the same time. So that's interesting. I mean, the sun is strong. Um, Yeah, we'll get into it. Anyway, so this week definitely feels like, it's like the sun is in the last degrees of Taurus. It's like the energies are locked in. The energy is practical, stubborn, it's slow to move. And as the sun crosses into Gemini, the frequency just changes. It lifts. It's like conversations speed up, inboxes and news feeds get more, your texts get longer. Um, Curiosity spikes, there's more mental restlessness, maybe multitasking, and what if I tried this instead energy will come about. So quite a bit difference. It's going to be like another what a difference a day makes. And the sun switches, you're going to be out of that rootedness, but yet we still have Mars there. So it's not going to that stubborn Taurus energy is not going to totally go away. It's just going to switch from the sun to Mars, kind of. And they're both, sun and Mars are both masculine kind of energies. So it will still feel like it's there. All right. Plans that felt stuck under Taurus may suddenly start moving, which would be good, but in a more scattered experimental way rather than a straight line linear kind of push, which would be interesting. So Mars in Taurus is slow, stubborn push aimed right at Pluto. Mars is at zero. And it's just, it's just going to be getting comfortable with Taurus energy, and then it's got to deal with crap. I gotta go over and square Pluto. I gotta square up with Pluto. It's like I just got here. Now I gotta deal with this crap. Kind of an energy, but I don't want to paint it as all negative. But it is icky. It's not like a wonderful. It's not like the wonderful Venus Jupiter transit that we're gonna have after that for sure. Anyway, Mars and Taurus, slow, stubborn. It wants tangible results, not theories. It's like, don't go off with all those freaking theories. I want tangible results. I want to see the numbers. It moves slower, but it digs in harder once it's committed. It could show up as stubbornness, territorial, or I won't be rushed. So as Mars approaches the exact square to Pluto, I'll just move it over here and get off of that for you. You can see it right about there. Did I get it? There. The 6 degrees, Mars is Pluto. There. Okay. We'll just look at it there. As it approaches that, it's like you think this earthiness meets Plutonian force field, right? So we got intensity and power struggles. People dig their heels in. It's stubborn. I'm not going to change. Old grudges, or like control issues can come to the surface. Pressure to transform how you act on your desires. That's interesting. Pressure to transform Mars and Pluto, how you act on your desires. Mars, Pluto, transform. Are you pushing from fear and control or from genuine purpose? That, I think, is maybe some of the underlying, on a personal level, the Mars Pluto. It's like again, are we making a stand and are we doing something from fear, or are you on your purpose? That's very good to ask. Anyway, hidden motives, either yours or others, will come to light under this for sure. And then we have some other interesting side factors. We got, Venus into Cancer. So we've got more emotional tides rising. So they're at 0 degrees Cancer. It's like a little soft overlay over all that heavy Mars Pluto intensity. On the collective level, it will bring a more of a focus on family, home, emotional safety, loyalty, being protective, or protecting others or being protected. Strong attachment needs. People may be more sensitive, of course, moody or mood driven or nostalgic. Um, a desire to pull close to trusted people while the outer world feels volatile, right? It's, Cancer going in the shell. This is part of the week where you might notice a bigger hunger for genuine care, not just mental stimulation. That is going to be all of that. I think we're going to have a bit of all that. We got the mental stimulation with all the Gemini season, but then with Venus and then coming closer to Jupiter in Cancer. Um, we've got that heart feeling coming up. Also, money and relationship decisions are being driven by instinct and gut. Like, does this feel safe more than logic? So with the Venus and Cancer, it's going to drive it there. So we'll get the benefit of both. It's like the logical side, Mercury, and the Sun and Uranus now all in Gemini is going to be really speeding that up. But then we have Venus there to calm things down, being in Cancer, making sure that you put it through the gut and the feeling first. Yeah, Uranus and Mercury in Gemini is like the wild card mind, and then Mercury and Uranus both there is like the thought field is just electric. We get sudden insights, surprising conversations, what you thought might have been isn't or will change, and also disruptive information. It's definitely in the mix. We got changes in tech, media, communication platforms, travel, or logistics could all be shifting. Mentally, it can feel a little bit jittery, a little bit wired, a bit overstimulated. So make sure, again, we talked about grounding last week, making sure that you're grounding, you're doing Epsom salt baths, you're breathing, you're taking minerals, you're barefoot on the earth, you got your grounding shoes, whatever that helps you ground. So layer that over your Mars Pluto, we get a recipe for heated discourse, sharp words, or truth bombs being dropped, leaks of information or narratives flipping quickly. Like, just heard recently, like, Trump has been is all over the place, but one thing he did say it was he talked about oh, we're getting too many people getting too many vaccines. The vaccines aren't good. There are people are hurting lots of people. It's the first time I had him say that, heard him say that. That was huge. So I mean, like in the midst of stuff, it's like somebody's going sideways, and all of a sudden they come out with something like that. So keep your eyes open and your ears peeled, right? I said that wrong intentionally. See it if you're paying attention. Okay, leaks of information or narratives flipping quickly. That's what I just said. Hey, just off to the side. It's like, flip. What did I say? What? People reacting strongly to new data that challenges entrenched positions. It's like, yeah, anyway, you get it. Okay, so how to work with this. So we want to expect intensity and we don't want to feed any escalation. So that Mars squares Pluto weeks are powerful but volatile. Underline that word, volatile. So you're going to use that energy to push through a necessary change in work or a like relationship dynamic. So deep focused work, strategic planning, restructuring, clearing out what's no longer viable. But be careful about ultimatums and like the scorched earth reactions. That's where it gets like over the top or it gets to be too fixed or like, well, I'm just gonna blah blah, and you'll just like blow up and that's not good. Um, Also be careful about obsessive behavior, like obsessively checking news or your texts or enemies or suspicion. Pluto loves to fixate on all that stuff, and that just feeds that, and you don't want to do that. So if a conflict does heat up, you got to ask, it's like, is this about the actual issue or is it about power control or ego? So it's like if it's about the actual issue, stay on that. But if it shifts into power control, ego, then it's like, I don't know, part of that. I'm not playing this game. All right. So the sign shifts are going to like reframe our story. So as the sun moves into Gemini while Mars is doing its square to Pluto, it can actually help you see a situation from many angles, right? Sun and Gemini. So it would be good to like talk it out or journaling where you can write it out, you gather that information, all the Gemini stuff, and then Gemini wants multiple perspectives. Good. So be open to the idea that your fixed Taurus assumptions may not be the full picture. It's just like a data point, right? And one anchor point. So it can kind of help us, help you all of us use Pluto's depth without getting trapped in a single rigid narrative, mainly. Venus in Cancer, it could be the emotional anchor, like under pressure. It's like you can lean into, well, I think I'm just going to go home and have some comfort food. Um, Talk to my trusted friend, or just simply ground myself and do some meditation. Maybe cooking, nesting, tending to your literal environment, just futzing around. Conversations that make you feel safe and emotionally real, not something you got to perform. Um, what else? That's pretty much it on that. Let's see. Let's look at, okay, here's what I said to the AI. So I like to look at Mars Pluto square coming up and the world stage, especially now where so many countries are stirring up war, conflict, and the nuclear threat is on the table again. But we also have the outer planet trines and sextiles and the upcoming Venus Jupiter conjunction. Can you put this in perspective for the collective? So right now, okay, it says the Mars Pluto square, why the world feels so volatile. So right now, Mars is in early Taurus and Pluto is in early Aquarius. They are already in a tightening square. So it will be strongest over the next couple of weeks as Mars moves through the early degrees of Taurus and then perfects that square on next Tuesday. Still going to take a little while to wind down. We'll feel it into June. So Mars and Taurus, okay, fights over land, territory, food, money, energy, and literal ground. Mars and Taurus isn't impulsive. It's stubborn and slow to move. But once moved, it can dig in and refuse to back down. This is a siege energy, a supply chain warfare, blockades, sanctions, and grinding standoffs. Pluto and Aquarius is deep power struggles around collectives, alliances, and technology, the skies and the grid, internet, power, satellites, nuclear technology, AI systems. Pluto here radicalizes ideologies and makes the people or networks into instruments of power. Square them, and you get nuclear threats as leverage in psychological warfare. Tech and sky-based brinkmanship like missiles, drones, satellites, cyber attacks. Uh-huh. Power blocks hardening, alliances becoming more confrontational, financial resources conflict that sit behind the visible war talk. So it's like who controls energy, the rare earth data, infrastructure, right? It's like what if in the Strait of Hormuz we can't get certain what are those things? Transformers or there's a few things that only come out there. My mind's blanking on it because I'm astrobabble at the moment, but there's a few things that you can't get anywhere else. So that is not good. But it will always make some other change. So anyway, it doesn't automatically equate to global annihilation. Mars transits are quick, luckily. What they tend to do is they flare up tensions and they show us where the underlying Pluto issues already were. Think of this as a pressure test. Where have we been ignoring a festering structural problem, Pluto and Aquarius, until something small but sharp, Mars and Taurus, hits it? This is why the headlines suddenly feel like, are we actually going there? The answer astrologically is yes. This is a period where people talk like they might go there and where some may cross dangerous lines, but it's also a period where power players reveal their true strategies. And that revelation is very important for the longer story. So we have these outer planet trines and sextiles. We talked about this many times, and you can see them here. So we have kind of, it's like a quiet channels of intelligence. So if we look here, we've got alongside this harsh Mars Pluto, we've got the Uranus. Let me put this over here. And I don't want to do that color. Yeah, let's do this color. Okay, so we've got there we go. So we got Uranus over here is going to be going a trine over to Pluto because we have air and air, right? And then we have a sextile and a sextile. There we go. Okay. So because we have Aries, these are masculine signs, and the Gemini masculine signs, and we have the Uranus masculine signs. So we're gonna have this for a while, right? Because they don't move that fast, and they will be kind of moving in similar motions. So all right, let me move that. Okay. So what else? Okay, so these are like slow generational aspects. They describe the evolutionary arc underneath the immediate crisis. They're like long fiber optic cables carrying a different kind of signal beneath all the noise. What they say in plain language, so basically, like they trine, the first one I drew, the Uranus Pluto, they're Gemini and Aquarius, right? Okay, so we got air to air, we got Gemini, Aquarius, so technology, systemic revolution that can be integrated rather than purely destructive. This is a pattern that supports coordinated network solutions, global movements, whistleblowers, decentralized tech, new kinds of alliances. It favors fast information sharing that can expose bad actors as much as empower them. All right, then we have the two sextiles. We have Uranus, Neptune. Okay, we were talking about Uranus with Pluto. That was the trine. Now we have Uranus to Neptune, the sextile. It's half of the trine. So this is like a potential for inspired or even spiritual breakthroughs because we have Neptune there, right? So in how we use tech and knowledge. Oh, yay, good. In the best form, this looks like diplomacy enhanced by data, humanitarian relief organized via networks, or rapid global response to crises. We just have to avoid the crisis that, the traps that put us into having to do that. Anyway, the other sextile, Neptune and Pluto coming back the other way. So Pluto will have it on either side there. Deep myth and deep power in subtle cooperation. This is why narratives, symbolism, and the media are so potent right now. Stories move masses, but it's also why there's a real potential for collective spiritual maturation under pressure. So a lot of genius and quiet coordination happening behind the scenes, even if the world stage does look like a powder keg. So, all right, let me get rid of this. Um, Eraser. Okay. So we see that coming up. But then there's a kind of a little, what we're going to be seeing too. So here's the square. Now we see these, I just went over those, but now we see Venus here is coming closer to Jupiter. So that is going to be really nice. Okay, so the Venus Jupiter conjunction in Cancer, it's like a counterweight of care. So it's a big deal for the collective mood. So right now Venus is at the very beginning of Cancer and Jupiter's already past middle of Cancer, and they're both moving toward joining forces there. I think it's like 28 degrees or something when they actually conjunct. So together, those are the classic benefics. They amplify generosity, connection, and a desire for peace and well-being. Put them in Cancer, and the image becomes very specific. There's going to be a focus on families, children, home, and food. Strong emotional responses to images of suffering and displacement. A surge of support for refugees, civilians, and basic security. I'm as much as I love the way a lot of this sounds, I'm hoping that it's not a result of some bad thing. It's like I hope something doesn't happen where we have to have a surge of support for refugees and civilians. I mean, I think it's already happening. But anyway, that's here. I just wanted to read that, make sure that we understand that. Greater public appetite for protection, safe harbors, and enough for everyone, which is good. This can be expressed as maybe more vocal pushback from populations who say, we do not want total war. We want safety for our kids, our dogs, our lizards, our pets, our plants, our world. We want to aid mobilization, fundraising, charity, and international support networks, strengthening, maybe work on the front side rather than the back side. So political rewards or backlash centered around who provides real security and who cares versus who only saber rattles. Um, it does this the Jupiter Venus conjunction doesn't magically cancel the Mars Pluto, but it creates a social and emotional pressure against crossing certain lines. Hopefully, it will put enough pressure to say, don't do this. I mean, leaders who ignore that may find themselves increasingly isolated or delegitimized, even if they only hold temporary power. So hopefully this, is a collective, we can make some change. So the Mars Pluto square is loud. It's a stressful chapter. It's escalations, it's dangerous posturing, it's harsh will tests of wills, especially loud now. All right. And then Pluto and Aquarius, we've got this for a while, but this is a real epic. It's a complete rewiring of how power, technology, and the collective intersect. Nuclear threats, AI, digital empires, crowds, and networks are all Pluto and Aquarius themes. So the outer planet, this is what's interesting. We got this outer planet harmony, what I just showed you with the trines and sextiles, suggests that beneath the drama, there is a timeline available where humanity does learn how to integrate radical technology, global interdependence, and spiritual maturity instead of destroying itself with them. Let's hope so. And then the Venus, Jupiter in Cancer is like a pulse of emotional sanity, reminding the collective that people live here, children live here. This isn't a game. Historically, when we get strong Mars Pluto periods, we often see intense showdowns and horrific rhetoric, horrible but localized events that become turning points. That's what I'm afraid of or don't want, or it's kind of like sticking out. Exposure of hidden operations, covert programs, and corrupt power. And it'd be way better if we did that. Then we can avoid this crap here. But it's already happening. It's already happening. And then afterward, a reconstructing of norms and treaties. The nuclear threat being back on the table is, in some sense, Pluto and Aquarius revealing that what was never truly off the table. I totally agree with that. We're being forced to look again at the unsustainable logic of mutually assured destruction in a age of vastly more complex technology and interdependence. The chart doesn't say it and it all ends here. It says this is a phase where we decide under duress how we want power and technology to be used and who we are to one another when stakes are existential. All right, coming in for the landing here. So how do we work with this energy like individually and collectively? So on a personal level, both Mars and square Pluto kind of mirrors like power struggles and control issues in your own life, confrontations where someone insists my way or the highway, fears about survival, resources, and safety being triggered. Working constructively with it looks like being exquisitely conscious of your own impulses to dominate, punish, or win at all costs. Channeling intensity into tangible work, like building security, um, preparing wisely, strengthening your physical and emotional resilience. Maybe refusing to feed compulsive doom scrolling or narratives that paralyze you, instead choosing informed engagement. And on a collective level, um, the supportive outer aspects plus Venus, Jupiter say, networks with like-minded people, Uranus, trine Pluto, loves organized, intelligent community action, support journalism, tech ethics, peace efforts, and humanitarian channels that align with your values. Remember that public sentiment, Venus, Jupiter, and Cancer, does matter right now. Leaders are watching the emotional weather. You don't have to pretend the danger isn't real, but you also don't have to live as though catastrophe is guaranteed. The chart shows live wires, yes, but it also shows backup systems, alternative routes, and a tremendous capacity for creative, compassionate intervention. All right, a couple more things. I asked it. Let's see. We're talking about nuclear talk, geopolitics, and the information war. Yeah, and then how to work with that. Okay, so nuclear language comes back to the foreground whenever Pluto is loudly activated. And right now, Mars in early Taurus squaring Pluto is exactly that. A trigger on deep systemic power. Pluto in Aquarius is the age of systems that can flip everything. Nukes, AI, cyber grids, satellite constellations. And then Mars in Taurus brings in the material stakes, land, food, energy, money, and says, what are you actually willing to destroy to keep control of this? These are some interesting questions. So the nuclear rhetoric is a the threat is leverage, right? It's about testing how far the world will let certain actors go and what red lines actually exist now. Astrologically, this looks more like the brinkmanship and modernization of arsenals than a simple march to global annihilation. The square heats up the discussion and the risk of miscalculation, but Mars moves on. Pluto stays and forces the long-term question. Can we keep 20th century extinction tools in a 21st century hyper network world without destroying ourselves? Who gets to hold that power in a multilateral, multipolar landscape? So the outer planet trines and sextiles act like background stabilizers here. Uranus, Pluto, and Neptune. Pluto in cooperative aspects suggests that as terrible as some episodes may be, there are also parallel movements toward new norms, new treaties, technologies of control and verification. In other words, it's still dangerous, but the evolutionary bias of the sky isn't toward pure chaos. It's toward forced innovation and around how we handle civilian level risks. All right, so Saturn in Aries is the testing of borders, red lines, and military postures. It's the era of show me you're serious. Countries are taking more unilateral actions, probing where old agreements are hollow, where the world order is more narrative than reality. I'll let you interpret the world order. Mars in Taurus adds the underlying resources, energy routes, critical minerals, farmland, ports, shipping lanes, routes. What did Michael Yon say? Routes, food and resources is the yeah. I think that's what he said that people try to control countries. All right. It's why conflict right now almost always traces back to who controls what on what ground that others need. Taurus doesn't fight for abstractions; it fights for what feeds and funds survival. Jupiter in Cancer, meanwhile, is amplifying the emotional nationalistic piece, right? Cancer's homeland, tribe, ancestors, safety. Jupiter here blows up both patriotism and empathy. The rally around the flag, energy, and global outcry when civilians and children are harmed. It's why alliances are reforming, not just around ideology, but around who feels like family and who offers real protection. You know, we got all these different conflicts with different groups. My tribe, your tribe, this tribe, that tribe. You put it together and we get a geopolitical phase that's very intense. But it's also transitional. Think less sudden end of the world and more drawn out struggle over a new map of power, where nuclear threat, conventional force, economics, and public emotions are all bargaining chips. Oh boy. Okay, last part here. Uranus in early Gemini plus Pluto in Aquarius is the engine of the information tech arms race. You can hear it in every story about AI and autonomous weapons, cyber warfare and critical infrastructure hacks, satellites, drone, and control of the sky, mass surveillance versus encryption and privacy. Yeah, all of that. Memnic warfare, disinformation, and psychological ops. Neptune in Aries adds myth and zeal to all this. Conflicts are framed not just as practical disputes, but as holy wars, civilizational clashes, or spiritual battles. It's why the language around tech and geopolitics feels increasingly apocalyptic. The symbols being used are religious, archetypal, and existential. The helpful part is the outer planet harmony underneath. It softens these aspects and we actually can integrate this tech into a more conscious civilization. That doesn't actually happen automatically. Um, it depends on whether enough of the collective insists on ethics. Yeah, right. Transparency and boundaries about how these tools are wielded. That's good to know. But the aspects say it is possible. We're not cosmically locked into AI nukes equals guaranteed extinction. We are, however, forced to grow up quickly about them. So if we zoom out over the next few years, nuclear talk is a symptom of the deeper Pluto and Aquarius question about who controls civilization ending switches. Geopolitics is in a Saturn and Aries, Mars and Taurus phase of hard red line testing around land, resources, and spheres of influence. The information tech race is the Uranus in Gemini, Pluto, and Aquarius frontier. Whoever controls the narrative, codes, and networks controls disproportionate power. So, Venus and Jupiter's upcoming conjunction Cancer adds a very important countercurrent, the insistence of ordinary humans that home, family, food, and safety actually matter more than abstract power games. That's a part of the sky that supports mass refusal to go along with escalations that clearly endanger children in the future. It supports whistleblowers, journalists, activists, mothers, elders, anyone saying this is not acceptable. There must be another way. Very, very, very good stuff. Now, I think is there anything else here? That's pretty much it on there. There's just a lot of things. I think that this week is going to roll in for us. I mean, we've just kind of been setting up. We've had so many changes this year already. This is just huge. But this is going to set the tone for, I think, kind of the dawn of the new world. We have to go through some testing parts here, some hardships, some struggles, and put down new lines. This stuff is not acceptable. There is maniacal people running things, and they need to be stopped. People need to voice their opinion. I think we all have to get a little loud about this somehow in whatever way we all can to share this information. I think the astrology is the tool that can, that we can see past, and I hope that this little deep dive can clear up some fears about the nuclear issue, although it's just right there. And, we will be facing this for a while. We may have to get more solutions in place. I'm not sure what they are. You might start with making sure that you're nutritionally sound. You've got enough iodine, other things, to help the body to deal with that on other levels. Anyway, there's a lot on the table. It is a very interesting time. We do have some very good things coming in. I'd like to make sure that we focus on moving things forward and using the positive energy of what we have around and just getting this nice benefic Venus-Jupiter conjunction coming up. It is benefics. Let's like go benefics, right? And then use the structure of the Mars Pluto to redefine those boundaries, to look at that part within all of ourselves and see where we're overbearing or want to control or push things beyond what somebody else wants to, or having it on you, having things forced on you, and might have to draw your line in the sand and say this is not acceptable, and like work toward a win-win solution. So intense week, intense times. Um, yeah, I guess that's about all. There's a lot here. All right, more to follow. Have a interesting and a safe week. Hopefully, well, it's gonna be next week when the square is actually in position. So, all right, I guess I've said enough for tonight. Thank you for listening. Bye for now.